Good evening, everybody, and out there in Irish Breakdown land. Welcome to yet another edition of IB Nation Sports Talk. I am Vince D'Addario. I am not Sean Stiers. He is finishing up his vacation, a well-deserved vacation in parts unknown. I don't even know where he is. Doesn't matter. He's having a great time. I do know that much. And so this is the last show, sans Sean Stiers. He will be back. For those of you who are missing, who don't have that, you're not getting your Sean Stiers fix, I apologize. He will be back on Monday. He will be back to take over, and I'll be over on the other side, and he'll be in my spot. We'll just do one shift over. So he'll be back on Monday, but today I am joined by the incomparable Bobby Hensley. Thank you, sir, for joining me today. What's going on, man?
Not much. How you doing? I feel bad for those people that need Sean in their life. Like, I don't get that. It's a vacation for me to be able to talk to you.
See, there it is. And if anybody thought that there wasn't going to be a little bit of picking on when Bobby comes on for Sean, then they're not paying attention. That's not how it works, right?
Well, he's easy to pick on.
It's fair. It's fair. So today we thought that with the big unveiling yesterday of the Shamrock Series uniform for 2022, going to Vegas with the clean white jerseys and the gold trim and all these different things, we're going to do a show all about the Shamrock Series, like the whole thing, like all the way back to 2009, which feels like a very long time ago to me. That was 4 kids ago for me. So that was like a whole other world, a whole other lifetime. And we're going to dive into this thing, and we're going to talk about our favorite uniforms. We're going to talk about our favorite venues, where they should go, where they, if they haven't gone there yet, maybe an opponent that we would like to see, everything Shamrock Series. We're going to have some fun with it. And so if you've got comments about the Shamrock Series, by all means, throw it in the chat. Let's talk about it. We'll bring it up. We're just going to kind of have some fun with this because the Shamrock Series, to be honest, Bobby, it's kind of contentious with some fans. Like, they either love it or they absolutely hate it. Where do you fall on the whole Shamrock Series thing with Notre Dame?
Well, you talk about 4 kids ago. That's 3 coaches ago for Notre Dame, 2009.
Solid point. That's a really good point.
I think it's a great thing that they do because they're the only program, I think, that can pull it off. They're the only ones, a national brand that can go into any situation, any stadium, any city, and still be loved and admired. Yeah. And they're the only ones that can pull that off. And I think it's good that they do it because it opens them up to a special thing that nobody else can do.
Absolutely. No, I'm 100% with you because there's no other program in the country. And we've been talking about the independence of Notre Dame, right? Over the past few weeks, they're going to join a conference, all of this stuff. There's no other program in the country that could do what Notre Dame does with the Shamrock Series. And yes, has it fallen flat at times? Yes. Did it take a little bit for it to kind of take off as far as like the venues and the uniforms and all that? Yeah, it did. Like, they kind of dipped their toe in at the beginning. We'll kind of go over that a little bit before they really jumped in with both feet with the uniform change. But they're the only ones that could do this. They're the only ones that could take a home game, a home atmosphere with pep rallies and PA address announcer, like the whole home situation, pick it up and take it across the country and be effective.
And I think it's so tiered on this because I think NBC loves it because they get a primetime game. All of these games have been primetime.
Sure.
It gives them an opponent that's not a MAC school, so it's usually at least a better opponent than, somebody middle of the road. And Notre Dame benefits greatly from it. The uniforms is something for people to talk about. Yeah. So we're going to talk about today.
Sure.
It gives you a whole lot of stuff, content. It gives you something unique. It gives you something new. And like, where they're going, what uniforms are they going to wear? And then we can talk about how does this uniform stand up against other ones and where else could they go? And I think it just gives so many positive vibes towards the program. Yeah. And this Notre Dame team, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. They've been doing this for a while. They just didn't call it the Shamrock Series. Like going to Ireland. They've been in Ireland before. They've played Navy in different places. They've been in these big venues before. It's nice that they finally put a name on it.
Sure.
So then it feels like, because how many of these games, like you said, that we're going to go through they weren't great games, but now they were a part of the Shamrock Series. So that made that game that didn't go very well or didn't matter. It matters now.
Yes, that's actually a really good point. They've always been kind of a barnstorming club because they had to be, right? Back in the day when they wanted to join the Big Ten, and the Big Ten was like, yeah, no, not happening. They're like, okay, well, I guess we'll get on a train and travel 3 days and go play Southern Cal, or we'll do whatever. And so they've been a barnstorming type of team, and that's how they gained the popularity that they have to this day. And then you add on to it the Lindsey Nelson replays on Sundays and all of those different things. That's how they got a nationwide following. And so Notre Dame has the ability to pick up and have a home game all over the country, and they pretty much sell out all of those venues as well. I've got the list here someplace. Here it is. I mean, you're talking, there has never been a Shamrock Series game with, let's see, the one in Boston when they played Boston College in Fenway Park. It was a sellout. It was only 38,500 people, but that's because that's what that place held. The rest of them are all over 48, 50,000, 60,000, 70,000, like home games, and they're selling the place out. And then on top of that, they're undefeated in all of these Shamrock Series games as well. I love the Shamrock Series. I think it is a great concept. They've taken a break. Like they didn't have one in 2017. They didn't have one in 2019. 2020 got canceled because of COVID, obviously.
Everything did. Yeah,
exactly. And I guess they really don't have anything planned beyond 2022 at the moment. And the next iteration is going to be the rescheduled Lambeau Field game against Wisconsin in 2026. So at the moment, they're going to take like a 3-year hiatus and then come back with it. But I love the concept. I think it's great. I think they're slowly starting to run out of venues because they're starting to repeat a little bit here and there, which I guess I understand. But at the same time, I love the concept. The recruits love the uniforms. The fans love the uniforms for the most part. At the very least, it gives us something to talk about.
And it's different. Yep.
It's different. And Notre Dame has that iconic, home and away look. And so when they do something different, it's going to get people fired up one way or the other. And there's the whole no news is bad news, right? So, everybody across the nation is talking about Notre Dame Shamrock Series uniforms, at least for the last 24 hours, if not a little bit more. I mean, it was ESPN tweeted about it today, about 4 hours ago, right? I mean, everybody's
everywhere. Yeah.
Everybody's talking about it. So, all the comments under that tweet were negative because everybody hates Notre Dame, but I totally
polarizing,
get it. They're polarizing. That's exactly right. So personally, I like the Shamrock Series. I think it's a good thing. I think, again, like you said, nobody else could pull it off like Notre Dame does.
And I think that it's obvious that Notre Dame can pull off a lot that no one can. But like you talk about a home game not at home, but think about that Boston game. Their opponent was Boston College, and they still went in as the home team, the host team, and everybody like in the stadium was still cheering for Notre Dame. And they've done similar things to that before, but like they go to Maryland or Washington D.C. and play Maryland,
right?
And they're still the home team,
right?
So it's not even that it's a neutral field; they're going to enemy territory, and they're still Notre Dame's brand can pull the home field off.
Yeah, which is impressive. I mean, it's impressive, and the fact that these teams are willing to do that too. I want to put that out there. The teams that is their home area. They're willing to bring in Notre Dame, let them be the home team, and they still sign up for it, right? That says something about the power of the Notre Dame brand and why yet another check mark in the column of they don't need a conference yet, because they can still do this kind of thing. They can go into somebody's home territory and be the home team and still have success.
And still put on a show and play at a venue that, like Boston College, they probably would love playing at Fenway Park. They would have loved to have been the home team or been, the host, but they just obviously weren't because Notre Dame was going to pull more than they were, and it wasn't even close.
Absolutely.
And, you talk about the conference stuff, and that's not going to die off until I think the first kickoff against Ohio State because it's always – I think the USC-UCLA thing is still always leaving one shoe hanging, and it's like when will Notre Dame – do they need to say even that they're not going to join a conference, or who knows how that's going to go? But
Sure.
I think the Shamrock Series kind of shows, we've talked about it, or Sean and I've talked about it. I'm sure you have as well. But the Shamrock Series is just another prime example of what makes Notre Dame Notre Dame. And this goes back to when they were on the train going out to California to play USC. This goes to, while they've always been the only team with a national TV contract,
Right.
They don't need a conference, and maybe they will eventually. Who knows how that goes? But they still prove in 2022 that Notre Dame is independent, has a viable option to playoff, and the Shamrock Series proves that they can go anywhere and play anyone.
Agreed. And for that reason, I love it. I mean, I love the concept. I love the execution for the most part. But you're not going to love every one of these uniforms.
No.
That's a fact. You're not going to love. I'm curious to see where you go with this. So let's jump right into this, Bobby. We talked about the fact that the most fun thing about the Shamrock Series is the uniforms. They're different every time. I mean, drastically different every time. Everybody's got their favorites. Everybody's got the ones that they don't like. So we took the task on of ranking our top 3 uniforms, okay, from the Shamrock Series, but then also the worst, like the worst. And I definitely have an honorable mention for the worst as well. But I want to get your thoughts on your top 3. Give me your top 3. Go start 3-2. Go 3-2-1.
All right, number 3, 2010. It was just a plain green jersey with the gold numbers, kind of the old school, not the mustard, but the more modern version of the green and gold. And I just thought it was crisp, it was clean. I like bringing back the green. 2010, that was still when green was iffy to wear as a Notre Dame fan. You weren't sure if they were going to win the game or not.
Right.
So I think they picked a perfect spot for that color scheme. It looked good. I think I'm happy with it.
Okay. All right. And that was your those are the same green jerseys that they wore against like USC in 2005. So those were kind of people knew about them. Yeah, but people knew about them. But you're right. The whole green jersey thing was like, yeah. They and people still they get the jitters about the whole green jersey thing, which I get. But the recent history of the green jersey is still good for Notre Dame. But
in 2010, that's when they were, and like you said, they won, and they've been undefeated in this Shamrock Series, which is another good reason to keep it. It's because they win every game.
Good call.
So if you have a questionable jersey choice, throw it in there, and that's what they did.
I like that. So my third was actually last year. I actually they were fairly plain. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of a plain guy anyway, right? But I liked them. They had the big numbers. They, very traditional in look, and going and playing in Chicago. That was kind of a playoff of what Chicago's old uniforms used to look like. I kind of dug that. I like Chicago. I'm a fan of Chicago sports. It was just a clean, pretty basic look. I was all about it. I was pretty happy with those uniforms. And so 2021 actually made my list at number 3.
And that's another great jersey, and that's my honorable mention actually, because the way they had the Chicago Stars infiltrated in the jersey, I thought was neat. Yeah, it was a million times better than the jersey they had the first time they played in Chicago. When you talk about repeating venues, oof. But those, and we'll get to the bottom ones later. But
yes, we will.
But I agree with you 100%. I think last year's jerseys were just a good look, and it was almost like a normal blue, but then they added that Chicago feel to it. Yeah. There was a little uniqueness to it. Yes. And so I agree with you. I think that was a really good jersey. And I think it's interesting that both of us have used the word clean, crisp, jersey. So maybe we're going to agree on some stuff here.
It's going to be interesting because I think you're definitely going to see a trend with my top 2. You're going to see a theme, I think. But I'm bouncing it back to you. So what's your number 2 as far as favorite jersey is considered?
Number 2 to me is 2013. Again, I'm going to use the word clean.
Yeah,
it's a clean white jersey with the green numbers. They played Arizona State, I believe.
Yep.
And I thought that jersey again was clean. I don't need all the frills. I feel like we're on the same page with that, but I don't need like these hidden things in it. I love the white, and it just felt like a nice jersey to look at. It was almost like the Penn State away jersey, the white one.
Yeah.
Or their white out. I thought it was a great clean jersey. Again, all mine are going to be clean, but
yes, right.
I think that and ended up being a great game, and seeing Tommy Reese in it, I just think that jersey sticks out in my mind.
Well, and I liked the green face mask also with that one. You know, there was the touch of green, I think was a nice touch to that. So you had the all white with the gold numbers, and then you had the green outline. So I know a lot of people not necessarily fans of the green aspect of Notre Dame's uniforms, and I get that because it's technically not a traditional color of Notre Dame. I get that. Okay, fine. But I like the green personally. And I like the fact that they used the all white. You had the monochromatic look, the all white with the green and the green face mask. And I dug it, man. I was very impressed with 2013. And spoiler alert, that was my number one.
That's wondering if we were
so
at 5 figures.
Yeah, so I have to say that since you brought it up, that was my number one. I just thought that, again, like you said, that was clean. And they were playing on field turf, so there wasn't going to be any grass stains on it. I mean, it was clean from start to finish. Obviously, Notre Dame won that game. It was a little closer than maybe people would have liked, with Arizona State being 34-37. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember that game right, Arizona State scored a bunch like in the fourth quarter. So it was a close game that didn't need to be close. But I am a fan of the white on white. Okay, I like it. It's a good look. It makes people look a little bit sleeker, maybe a little faster. I don't know what it is, but I dig the all white, man. I really do.
I thought like you said, that it didn't get dirty through the game. It wasn't a rain mud game, so you can't even tell who anybody is. I like that you could see the numbers very crisp and very clearly. The hint of green. If green's not a Notre Dame color, then why isn't green considered a Notre Dame color?
And that's fair.
Because they were green for a while, and anytime they've ever had an alternate color, it's been green. Would you rather just have them the mustard? Would you rather have them the mustard color jersey or something?
Right.
I think the green, and like you said, it wasn't overpowering with the green, which is why I put it above the 2010 green jersey game.
Okay.
So I liked that there was white with a hint of green, and not green in your face that they maybe couldn't have pulled off at that point of their transition into more jerseys, but I think that one was a huge success. And we're still at that point, that was a huge move for Notre Dame to have a white jersey with the green numbers. I don't think they've done that in a long time or ever at that point.
Yeah, no, yes, absolutely. It was awesome. No doubt about that.
So what was your number two then?
So my number two, actually, and I just want to make sure I remind myself, my number two is this year's jerseys. And again, you're going to see the theme of the white on white. Yeah. And the more I looked at this year's versus the 2013, they're actually really similar. They both have the shamrock on the side. Now this one, there's no green, obviously. So the major difference is that there's no green on this year's version. I do dig the gold. I like the fact that they outlined the numbers. I'm sure that that's in navy. It's hard to tell if it's navy or black, but I'm sure that it's navy. If it was gold on white, you have zero chance of seeing the numbers, on TV or in the press box. So I like the fact that they outlined it. Somebody in the chat said that they wished that they outlined the Notre Dame across the front to make it easier to see. Okay, I get that. I could see that. The font that they used, it would be difficult to outline it because it was so thin. But I understand what they're saying. I totally get that completely. But that was my number two. So my number one and number two were both white on white, clean from head to toe. That's me, man. Like that's what I dig. And I thought they did a really good job with this year's version.
I think this year's jerseys look really good. And somebody mentioned, Trunk Vigo in our chat mentioned it. That's kind of how the Raiders do their jersey with white on gray almost.
Sure.
They have those jerseys. So it's almost paying homage to the host stadium's team.
Yeah.
And and I think that like we both I didn't know we'd like the same kind of jerseys, but we're obviously both digging the white on white. And it just, you think of being in Vegas, the white, you're in a desert. It's nice to not have a dark color. And I think they look really sleek. The only thing is I would put the Chicago ones from last year over this year's, but I think the trend of jerseys that they're designing right now, I think it's just going up because
I agree.
I think the last couple ones have been two of the top four in my mind.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I should probably look this up before I say it, but I believe the 2013 version, the all whites, were the last Adidas Shamrock Series version. And so it's interesting that this year they almost have a similar version, and it's the first time that Under Armour has tackled the white on white. So something to think about there for all the people that hate Under Armour. I thought they did a pretty good job this year and last year, but
I mean, we're both wearing an Under Armour Notre Dame shirt, I think. So I think we're okay with
I'm wearing my
Riley.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got Riley, but it's Under Armour, so I kind of dig it. But that's just me.
No.
What can you do?
I agree though. The jerseys, like I said, I think it's a nice little because the gold on white, it's crisp, it's clean. It's almost like, oh, is that hard to see? But that's kind of what the Raiders jerseys are.
Sure.
And if you're a Raiders fan, maybe you're a Notre Dame fan for a minute.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and again, I do like the fact that they kind of take a taste of where they're going to be.
Right.
So the gold, because they're in Vegas, totally get that. Makes a lot of sense. They were all green when they went to Fenway. They had the Chicago when they were in Chicago. Like, I like that these jerseys have a little bit more meaning to them. There was no Chicago in the 2012 version when they were in Soldier Field.
No, it was, let's be bold, but it wasn't honoring Chicago or the Bears or anything.
Bold isn't a word. Bold is a word for those.
Yeah.
Did we get your number one?
No, we haven't yet.
Yeah.
I was going to say first, while we're on the Vegas thing still.
Yeah.
Do you think it's weird that UNLV plays in South Bend and then for the Vegas game they're playing BYU?
I never thought about that. That is very interesting. I could have easily seen UNLV playing Notre Dame in a Shamrock Series in Vegas. That would make perfect sense because it would be similar to Boston College. It would, it would be similar to all of those different things. I never thought about that. It's like they're crossing paths on the way.
Right. But I guess, doesn't UNLV play their home games there? So maybe it would have been.
So. It would have really been a
legit home. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so my number one uniform, I went a little off my path, not too much. It's still a clean jersey, but I think it just fit so well with the game that was. Is the Yankee game in 2018. I knew it. And I know this is going to be in your bottom three, I bet. But I love the way that they paid homage to the Yankees because not only are they not playing a football stadium, they're playing a baseball stadium.
Absolutely.
And they're not playing in a baseball stadium. They're playing in Yankee Stadium, which is one of the greatest meccas of sports, kind of like Notre Dame Stadium, kind of like Lambeau Field they're going to eventually. So the fact that they went out of their way so much to pay homage to the Yankees, and it was so different from what Notre Dame wears, that I kind of vibed with it, and I enjoyed the fact that they went out of their way to make that jersey cross a hybrid Yankee Notre Dame jersey.
Here's what I'll say about that jersey, okay? I respect the fact that they were in Yankee Stadium. I respect the fact that they wanted to pay homage to the Yankees, and they did it with the logo, right? They did it with the pants.
Yeah, the pants.
The sleeve, right. So they were paying homage to the Yankees. I get it. And they used like the Yankees script for Notre Dame across the front. I mean, it was a Yankees jersey. I mean, that's what it was, right?
Right.
The only thing that would have made it worse, in my opinion, is if they would have pinstriped the shirt as well as the pants. Look, somebody mentioned that I was going to hate the Yankees jersey that they had because I hate the Yankees, and it's 100% accurate. Like there you go. Yeah. I'm totally emotional about it, and my hatred for the Yankees is true, and it is firm. And the fact that the school that I enjoy watching in college football put on the jersey basically that I despise in baseball, like. That was hard for me to stomach. Okay. Yeah. I respect it, but I don't have to like it. Okay.
So basically you're saying you appreciate the effort to pay homage.
Absolutely.
But that homage is your weak point that you hate. You can't stand them. That's your,
I respect you. And I know you're a White Sox fan, but it would be the same thing as if they played it. Yeah, see, I figured if they played at Comiskey or the Cell or whatever it's called these days, if they played there and they put on White Sox stuff, censored myself. If they put on White Sox uniforms, I'd feel the same way. Like the White Sox and the Yankees are in the same ballpark for me, right? So, what can I say? I am loyal to a fault, and I respect it, but I don't have to like it. I did not put them as my worst though, because of the respect factor. I will. Well,
that's very adult of you. I'm so proud of you for
you
being able to.
You should be proud of me.
I think like last year's jerseys paid homage to Chicago.
Sure.
But I think that other than that, that was the biggest homage. I don't know where you want to go next, but like even the Boston jerseys, that venue was so cool. That game was so neat. The way it was all set up, those jerseys were not good.
Agreed. Absolutely.
So, like if they had done more to pay homage to Boston and the Red Sox, maybe that would have been something. But
sure.
So the fact that they actually stayed in their brand and for better or for worse, or how many people in the world are Notre Dame and Yankee fans, and then they're IU basketball fans,
sure,
or whatever,
sure.
you know.
Yeah, right. It's going to be hard to please. You can't please everybody, frankly, and I totally get that.
But they should please you.
Of course, my phone is always on. They can call me at any time, and I will pick it up. Okay, but it's a 631 number. I'm going to pick it up.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've gone through our favorites, right? Yeah. And not to tease, but we're also going to do our favorite venues. And there's going to be some discrepancy for me for favorite venues versus the jerseys. So I just want to put that out there. Okay.
Right.
But
you can separate them.
I can. I'm a big boy. I'm an adult. I'm like over 40, for goodness sake. So
you're 40. You're a man.
That's right. I'm a man. I'm 40. Come at me. So let's talk about our worst jerseys, and you can have honorable mentions. That's totally fine for your worst jersey, but I think that there's a few candidates for this, in my opinion. But I'm going to let you go ahead and go first. Your worst jersey for the Shamrock Series.
So, like when you break down a jersey, we're talking fashion here, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Fashion week here at Irish Breakdown.
Yeah. Well, they totally pulled it off, but no. What I didn't like in 2012 in Chicago was the split helmet.
Yes.
So I put that as number 3. It had nothing to do with the neck down jersey. It had to do with that helmet, and I couldn't stop looking at it. And if they're going one way, you see one edge of it, and if you see, I don't like that. I just want to see the uniform, the look on the field, and I don't like seeing two different looks. It gets confusing. So that's gonna be my number 3 based on that helmet alone.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So you actually did a bottom 3. All right. So I'm gonna.
Yeah.
No. That's good.
I can go to my.
No. That's good stuff. I like that. So if we're going bottom 3, so I need to kind of rephrase. I have 2 written down for worst. I'm gonna have to come up with a third one. But
just throw the Yankee one in there.
Yeah. Okay. So that'll be my third one. That's a good call. That's gonna be my third one. So I'll go ahead and do my second one. Right.
Okay.
So my original honorable mention was going to be 2016, and like the camo greenish kind of pukey looking jerseys. I don't know. They're like it almost looked like a pea green kind of a look. Like that's not a green that Notre Dame wears. Number 1, okay. And it was 2016, and I realized they were playing Army. And
in San Antonio. And
I'm pretty sure that it was an homage to the Army. And I just got done saying that I can respect the homage and all of that. I realized that.
Ugly.
I just didn't like it at all. Like, it didn't say, like, if you took the name off of it, no, that doesn't say Notre Dame in any way for me. Except for the helmet, which had like the hand-drawn from the church, right? It says God, Country, Notre Dame. I believe that was
the theme.
Yeah, that was the theme. It just, I don't know. The colors just did me wrong. I did not enjoy that one at all. I didn't.
And Irish Chi-Town's been saying several things I agree with. We'll get some of them later, but those jerseys just were so bad. That's my number 1.
Is it? Okay.
I couldn't tolerate, like, even the shoulder, like everything it looked like they were wearing a vest, a green vest with gold sleeves. The helmet was bad. It looked like a mess. It looked like something like my 99-year-old grandma would come up with. Like it was just too much. I didn't need. It wasn't a clean look, was it?
No.
And it just had two. It was busy. It didn't look good. I just thought all of it could go. There wasn't one part of that jersey that you thought, I see this. And like you talk about paying homage, when it's clear that you're paying homage, I think it's fine. But they weren't clear about it. It was like, is that an Army thing? How does that pay homage to Army? I thought that jersey was the worst one. I would rather have the bright green and the bright yellow that they had in the 70s than I would. That is the worst jersey Notre Dame has ever worn bar none, ever.
Nice. I like that. Conviction.
Yeah.
I like that. And look, I know I'm in the minority on this one, and I know Notre Dame played like garbage when they wore them, but I like the throwback to the 70s jerseys that they did. I actually liked them. So
as long as it's infrequent, right?
Right.
Like you don't want to see that all the time.
Absolutely. But I dug those for that one game. Again,
the outcome wasn't great.
They played like garbage. It was a terrible game. There was nothing good about that game. But I like the uniform. So because I like that throwback kind of thing. Well, again, not for all the time, but for one game, I dug it. Like it was good.
But like that game, that was a USC game, I believe.
Yes.
It was 38-0 was the final. And
it was bad.
And I wouldn't remember a thing about that game if it wasn't for those jerseys at this point. Because they had plenty of losses that year.
Yes, that's a solid point. It's a very solid point.
So at least the jerseys spike a memory, which is kind of what we're getting at.
Yeah.
So what was your ugliest jersey then?
Well, my ugliest was 2012 with the double helmet. Like that was so incredibly bad. And you're right. From the neck down, it wasn't terrible. I don't have a problem putting the leprechaun on there. It's just they tried to do a little bit too much with the helmet. They were trying too hard. And you could easily say that for the camouflage jerseys too, because they were trying to do the God Country Notre Dame thing. I respect the fact that they gave it a shot. They just failed miserably. Like it was they were classic definition of doing too much, right? I get told that all the time at school. You do too much. You do too much, mister. Well, guess what? You did too much with both of these jerseys, or with the helmet from 2012 and then with the entire thing with the camouflage look. And I believe that was 16, right? And the other
the camo was 16,
and 16 was just a forgettable year anyway. It was the 4-8 year. They were terrible. They won that game big. That was one of the 4. Like that was one of the 4 games that they won in those awful looking jerseys a week after they lost to Navy. So I mean,
right?
It was not good. It was not good. Yeah. And the thing about the helmets, it wasn't even cut down the middle.
No, it's 3/4 almost. It was like
weird.
Yeah.
Like it was like just like over here. And like I don't even understand why that was a thing. Like who thought that was a good look? I mean, I will also say I am not against changing the helmet for this game. I'm not against it. Like if you can do it well, then okay. Like the helmet that they did when they went up to Michigan, they just had the green shamrock. Okay, like that's great. I have no problem with that. They kind of did one similar to that in 2011. They re-wore the green jerseys and they just put a shamrock on the helmet. And
was that the Maryland game?
Shamrock. Yeah, it was the Maryland game. Mm-hmm. They won 45-21.
Jonas Gray. Yeah.
Yep, and it was a gold helmet, but then with like a gold shamrock.
Leaf. Yeah.
Okay, like that. It's subtle. It's a little bit different. I can get on board with that. It looked like the leprechaun threw up all over that two-tone thing. Like that was really bad.
I feel like the two-tone thing was almost somebody, it was their last year and they couldn't pick between 2 themes. So they're like, you know what? Let's put them both on it. And then I'm out anyway. And it was just so ugly.
Yeah.
And that game was better than what that uniform was. Because I like this simpler look as we talked about. But even the helmet's the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't remember what year it was, but when they played in Indy, they had a simple, clean. I mean, that jersey and helmet combo is the one I put in the middle. It's absolutely split. It's neither good nor bad. But the rest of them, I think.
Oh, that was the one against Purdue, and they had like
2014,
the interlocking ND on there. Yeah, that one wasn't bad.
But
it was middle of the road. Like it didn't jump off the chart at me, but it wasn't terrible either, you know? So yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah. So I don't know. And then like you said, doing too much. I think that's what the 2 worst ones we had. I don't know how we ended up with the same 2 worst ones, but we did was the split helmet and then the Army one in 2016. The only other jersey that really bothered me was in 2017. It had Rockne on the back, which I thought was cool, but that's all they did different. I felt like they just got lazy with it.
Yeah,
they didn't make any jumps. They just put Rockne in the back of everybody like it's a name. Yeah. And like, okay, neat. But at this point, they had been on a winning streak with jerseys. It would have been nice to see them try something a little bit more. Right. But other than that Rockne thing, which is just lazy, I think the other 2 were just awful to watch. And it made the game less fun to watch, I almost think.
Yeah, that you know what? You make
takes you out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I I'm excited to see this game for numerous reasons. You know, it's in Vegas. It's against a good quality team. So here's the other thing about the Shamrock Series, and I know I'm getting off track a little bit, but they've only played this game against, I want to say, 2 ranked opponents the entire time that they've done this game. And I'm looking for it. I had it up, and of course I can't find it right now.
And is that almost by design? Do they want to have this be their own little bowl game so that they can always win?
That's a really good question. In 2013 against Arizona State, they won that game. Arizona State was ranked 22nd, and they won by 3. And then in 2018, Syracuse was ranked 12th, and they smoked them 36-3. And
Syracuse didn't end up 12th.
No, they didn't. No, but they were 12th in the middle of November. So, I mean, it's not bad. Right. And then, of course, Wisconsin was ranked 18th last year. So 3 times out of the entire series have they played somebody that's been ranked. Now, I think they'll get a 4th time against BYU. I would be shocked if BYU wasn't ranked by the time Notre Dame plays them October 8th. They're, depending on what you look at, they're like in the 20s, I think, right now. But I think they'll climb a little bit by the time October 8th rolls around. But the games haven't been that exciting because they haven't really played a whole lot of people, which, you know, they played Army twice, you know, Maryland. It's just been, you know, okay. I'm excited that this game actually might be a good football game.
Right. Well, okay. So if this game was just in South Bend with normal jerseys and normal atmosphere, would it still be a game worth watching? Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
So maybe that's another reason why they've plucked a game every year that was a lesser game, a lesser opponent, and it makes it a memorable game. Because you wouldn't remember that they played, you know, Arizona State in Dallas 2013, except for the fact of this. You wouldn't have remembered a lot of those Army games weren't very good. And it's like Irish Shytown says in our chat, should they play a team like Army and Navy every year where you can just move the game wherever you want, go into whatever territory, and you're still, you know, kind of giving Navy what Notre Dame's always promised them, which is a game every year.
Sure.
But just bringing them here and playing them wherever, it's nice that, like, because going to Ireland, that's going to be a Shamrock Series game without calling it a Shamrock Series game.
Right.
So, and who are they playing? Navy. So you almost feel like maybe that's a good way to keep Navy on the schedule, but not like make it burned as like a lower tier game.
Right. No, I'm with you on that.
Which one. I'm kind of jumping topics there.
Well, that's all good. We can play it however we want. The boss is out of town.
That's right.
But no, I agree with you that you run into, and I don't want to be, I just playing devil's advocate. You run into playing certain games in certain areas and TV rights and all of that stuff with NBC. And so you got to be careful a little bit, but I totally get what you're saying. Again, Notre Dame jumps all over the place. I love it. And you're right. I wouldn't remember 3/4 of these games if they weren't Shamrock Series games. They would just be another game on the schedule, big deal, and it would have been a home game, obviously, and it would just been another day to go out to the stadium and do your thing, and yay, Notre Dame won, and, you know, it is what it is, right? So, yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, one more list we got to get to. Top 3 venues. So your favorite places that they've gone, and then when we're done, we'll talk about maybe some place that they haven't gone yet that you'd like to see them go to.
See, venues, do you want me to start at 3 or 1?
Yeah, go 3. What the heck?
All right, 3. I'm going to have to go with, I was ready for number 1.
You can go whatever way you want, brother. It's all good.
No, I'll just say I thought when they played at Cowboy Stadium, that was a good venue because it was still kind of a fresh venue. It was the big dome at the time. You know, we forget it now. We take Jerry World for granted because it's just been there and there's been bigger ones built. But the fact that they got to go in there and play a game in like 2013 against Arizona State, I think that was a really nice venue for Notre Dame in a big market. And actually, that one was against a decent opponent, and it was a good game. So I think that'll be number 3.
My number 3 was actually Fenway. Like going to Fenway, I think that was obviously it was big to Brian Kelly. He's from that area, so I know, but I get the infatuation for him playing where the Red Sox play, but playing in a historic stadium like that, you know, it's the oldest baseball stadium. I believe it opened in 1912. It's the oldest baseball stadium still in use. I dig that kind of stuff. So I think that was pretty cool. The jerseys weren't great. I mean, the green on green, they were not great in any way, shape, or form. I understand what they were trying to do because
Green
of the
Monster.
Green Monster. It's I get it. Poorly executed.
So bad.
But the venue itself, playing at Fenway, I thought was really cool. And that was one that I would have really liked to go to, and it did not have a chance. So that's the way I kind of look at these venues. Like, is it where would I want to go to watch this game and feel like this might be bigger than just a football game? That's one of them.
Well, and your number 3 is my number 1 for all the reasons you just mentioned. I love history. I'm a baseball guy, so I love and I'm not a Red Sox fan.
Oh, me neither.
But that game was so cool. I guess the negatives when you want to look back on that one, I think it was played on, was it on NBC Sportsnet? That was one of their first games on that. And both teams were on the same sideline, which was kind of a weird aesthetic to see. Like, you have football and baseball.
I forgot about that.
But so that aesthetic's weird. But other than that, I love they were there. I love seeing the green wall in the background. It was a big Brian Kelly thing, that was great at the time. And playing Boston College was good. I think that might have been their quintessential perfect venue for this. You know, all the Irish in Boston. I thought that was Celtics. Had the Irish feel. So I thought that was number 1 venue for me. Actually,
okay, all right, that's cool. My number 2 is this year coming up, Vegas. Like, I think that people are like, oh, it's Sin City and they're Catholic and all. Okay, Sin City is not what it used to be.
Get out of here.
Number 1. Okay. I realize, I don't even realize prostitution is still a thing out there. I haven't been to Vegas in a long time. I don't know. But like,
if you know, answer in the chat.
Right. Gambling is legal across, well, it's not across the country, but in most states, it is legal. It is a thing. It's fun to do. People, it's not a taboo thing anymore. Like, Vegas is not the old Vegas, and the stadium is state of the art. Number 1, I think that's cool all by itself. The location is cool. They've obviously never played there before. I just think it's going to be a great time, and it's going to be a great game, and they're wearing great uniforms. And so Vegas is my number 2. It's a destination place to watch a game, and I think they knocked it out of the park with this one.
I think absolutely you're right on all those points. The mob's not running Vegas anymore, or at least, like you said, I don't know, I guess, but it feels like it's not. But what a great venue. And, it's almost like one of those venues that's a new mega stadium where they're going to host a Final Four, and the Super Bowl could be on its way. And you can see all of that happening there. And it has nothing to do with the gambling or the sins necessarily.
Right.
It's a destination anyway.
Right.
Plenty of people. I know our guy Sean Sires was out there last year. And do you gamble? Sure, you might go into a casino, but there's also so much else to do.
Right.
And it's such a destination for people from all around the country to go to that I think that's a slam dunk as a destination, and a venue itself is just massive.
Yeah.
And at the Raiders playing there, I don't know if they've used it to its potential because they haven't been good enough yet to showcase it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, I was disappointed in the Soldier Field thing because they've done it already. And because of where we're located, Soldier Field doesn't feel all that special. Like, it just doesn't, right? I thought they did a great job with what they did, but it just wasn't special. Vegas is special. Like, that's a destination. That is someplace to go that's going to be fun, and everything surrounding it is going to be fun. Are people going to gamble? Probably.
Would they gamble in Indiana too?
Exactly.
Probably.
I do. And I've got the app that I get on all the time, and I always bet Notre Dame to win or cover or whatever. Yeah. And it's fun. It makes the game more exciting and all of these different things. So I think Vegas is a great spot. So that was my number 2 for sure.
Plus, they can get out there. They're close to the West Coast if they want to do some recruiting or bring recruits in.
Absolutely.
There's just so many wins behind the scenes besides just being in Vegas and being in the gambling capital of the world. And I know they started the gambling stuff, but
for sure.
But nowadays, I think that's a wonderful venue, and I'm happy that they made the risk to kind of go there, actually. Because
absolutely,
for them it is. And what other place is there really with a new mega stadium that Notre Dame could go to and pull like that? I can't think of any off the top of my. Maybe you could say SoFi,
sure,
but they're kind of busy still being new and still getting Super Bowl and still having 2 NFL teams, so they don't exactly have weekends free on a Saturday for a big game like that.
Right.
In the town of Vegas, well, yes, there's gambling, it's also small enough that they can make it a Notre Dame town for a weekend
Right.
and really theme everything all the way up and down the strip.
Absolutely. That's a really good call. That leads me to my number one, and I know this is going to surprise a lot of people, but it's Yankee Stadium. Like, that is my number one for all of the reasons that Fenway was an important place to go play. Yankee Stadium is the same, plus it holds history for Notre Dame specifically. And I realize it's a new Yankee Stadium. I get that, but it's still Yankee Stadium, and Notre Dame has a history with Yankee Stadium. They played there all the time back in the early days of Notre Dame football. They had iconic games at Yankee Stadium for Notre Dame football. I mean, how can you not appreciate that? You can hate the Yankees all you want. That has nothing to do with it. It has to do with the fact that Notre Dame has a history in that place and in Yankee Stadium, and then they went back and they did it. And I believe they played Army as well, which is a throwback to what they did when they were in Yankee Stadium the first few times. So I liked it. I liked it a lot. As much as I didn't like the uniforms because of my hatred for the Yankees, I could still appreciate the tradition. And so Yankee Stadium was my number one. I know that's going to probably surprise some people.
I had Yankee Stadium as my number two and Fenway is my number one.
There you go.
And maybe that's my bias for baseball, but
that's fair. Me too.
But Yankee Stadium was a great venue. And for this series, it was great. It almost gets oversaturated when they added a bowl game then, and Notre Dame played in that bowl game. Right. So when you think of Notre Dame playing Yankee Stadium, it's great that they've done it a few times, but it almost, that's why I put it number two and Fenway number one, because there's only been one football game in Fenway in the last however many years.
Fair enough.
So I think it's more unique, but I think Yankee Stadium, again, is a layup at, yes, they could play it where the Giants and Jets play, but Yankee Stadium, it means something. And again, there's so many Notre Dame people in New York. It's a great venue. And playing it during the season is actually nicer than the bowl game, because the bowl game gets snowy and cold, and it's an open air press box for media members. And I know some of them had a hard time with that. but the venue itself is really great for football. And the field fit better than Fenway, I would admit. Good point. But again, Fenway's only had one football game, whereas Yankee Stadium's had a bowl game every year.
Well, that kind of piggyback. Because of that game that Notre Dame had, 100%. Yeah, you're absolutely right. They basically instituted a bowl game because they realized how successful it was to have Notre Dame there.
Right. And then they brought Notre Dame in for the bowl game.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think they played Syracuse, which is another great matchup in that stadium.
Yeah.
But yeah, Yankee Stadium for sure. It's so cool to see like a pass go up and you see the outfield behind them. And
it's crazy.
It's just I like those kind of venues because the football venues are neat. And obviously they're made for football and they house more people.
Right.
But just from me as a fan that's not going to the game and watching it on TV, I think it's pretty cool to see it in a baseball stadium or a place that you wouldn't see. It's almost like the Winter Classic for the NHL.
Yeah. I do enjoy that, by the way, and I'm not even a hockey fan. So
right. You tune in to see what it looks like at least.
Absolutely. All right. One last thing before we jump into rapid fire, Bobby. Where would you like to see a Shamrock Series held that they haven't gone to up to this point?
It's a unique question because I keep thinking I've changed my answer 4 or 5 times since you asked me that today earlier.
That's fair.
The number one that comes to me, and I don't know why, and I don't know how plausible it is, but I want to see them kind of do the opposite of what Liverpool did here, where that Liverpool came and played a pro soccer game here. I want to see them go to Europe and fill one of their stadiums up with their kind of crazy fans. And I know they've been to Ireland before, but I want to see them go into England and play like where Liverpool is, or Chelsea, or Manchester United, or Man City, one of those Premier League stadiums.
I actually had Wembley Stadium written down.
Wembley's a great one.
Yep, you know what I mean? Go overseas, take this thing to another continent. Yes, they go to Ireland. I get that, but that's like a separate kind of a thing. You know what I mean? Take the Shamrock Series. Take another team with you that isn't Navy, and because Navy's got the Ireland thing, like that's Notre Dame and Navy's thing. They do the Ireland thing, right? Take a different team with you. Go to England. Go to one of the massive soccer. So you could do it there. You could do it at the big stadium in Mexico City. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a lot of places that you could do it that hold 100,000 people or more, like just crazy numbers, right? I think that would be cool. Because I think they've done a lot of the NFL stadiums. They've done a lot of that in the States. It's almost like they have to go outside the continental United States in order to kind of get exciting about something. You know what I mean? So I'm on the same wavelength as you. I think they should go to one of those massive soccer stadiums and really have some fun with it.
I was trying to think if there's any place in like Australia they could go that would have a big enough stadium or field. But then you also run the risk in like somewhere that destined that like maybe they're not into American football because they love rugby. But I think like Wembley Stadium's a perfect pick. Yeah. It's the places Notre Dame or the NFL kind of wants to try out, but doesn't have the gumption just to put a team there. I think that's where Notre Dame should be like almost a tester for all of that. And Notre Dame, instead of being they're well known as the first national university, they could be the first international university in terms of football. Right. And I don't know who they play or who they bring. They could bring anyone. I'm sure any team would love to go with Notre Dame over there to play a game, and especially if it was like the first game of the year in week 0. So they have a week to come back and get acclimated back to time zone. I think anybody would love to go. You could have a ranked matchup over there.
Absolutely. Yeah, no question. I love that idea. All right. I think we have definitely done a good job talking about the Shamrock Series. Let's move on to the next thing on our list of fun items to talk about. Let's move on to rapid fire, Bobby. We've got a couple of questions here. We're gonna jump around all kinds of different sports, and we're gonna kind of have some fun with this one. Let me pull up my questions here. You said you're a baseball guy, so I was purposely looking for a baseball question to ask you for the first question of the night. So,
okay.
The World Baseball Classic is back in March of 23. So we keep seeing little bits and pieces being put out there about the World Baseball Classic, and Mike Trout is going to be the captain of Team USA, and they put out the schedule for Japan for Pool B. So it's going to be very interesting because Pool B is like Australia, Korea, China, Japan. That's all going to take place in Japan. So I ask you, Bobby Hensley, do you buy or sell the World Baseball Classic?
All right. You said it's in March, right?
It is in March. So basically during spring training.
And that's why I buy it. It gives you see these guys, most of the starters aren't playing spring training, and if barely at all. So at least this brand of baseball gives you something to like cheer about. And you have a little national flavor. It's something different because I'll tell you, I love baseball. It's hard for me to sit down and watch a spring training game from start to finish or more than an inning unless there's a specific reason to watch it.
Sure.
Like a big star coming back from injury.
I get that.
But the World Baseball Classic, especially once it gets past the pool play, I might sit down and watch a game or have it on in the background. And what I also love about it is that, like you said, they're playing in Japan. They're playing all over the world. It's on all day long or all night. It's kind of like watching KBO baseball in Korea. I can watch something at 3 a.m. if I'm still up, after doing nothing bad. But so I buy the concept because it gives me something besides just spring training that's kind of dull, and it's just dudes on vacation pretty much warming up for the season. There's a little country feel, and like I say, it's on all the time. So I think that it's a win for baseball fans to have something on. So I'll buy it.
I have talked about this with Sean, like when during the Olympics, right? We would talk about the Olympics, and we would talk about, the national pride and all of that stuff. I love the Olympics for that exact reason. And so the World Baseball Classic kind of takes a piece of that, right? And you get to root for Team USA. Like, why would you not want to root for Team USA? And the other thing that I think is fascinating to me, and maybe you could say that I'm ignorant, and that's totally fine. But like seeing all the other teams and who actually plays, on those teams, where they're from, and all those different things, like you associate certain guys with certain teams. Excuse me. And so, like, for example, when the Cubs, they had the World Baseball Classic, and all my favorite Cubs were playing on all these different teams and playing for their country and all these different, it's like, oh, okay, he came from there and he came from there. That's cool. Like, I don't think about it like that. I think, oh, well, he's a Cub or he's a White Sox or whatever the case may be, right? So I think it's fun, and I really enjoy the fact that these guys really get into it. Like, they really enjoy playing for their country with their colors and all of that different stuff. And it definitely enhances spring training. I mean, I'm sorry, there is zero that you can get me to watch spring training. Like, spring training is the worst. And I understand what they're doing. Guys are on pitch counts. They're not even playing the game, really. I mean, pitchers are pitching certain
just throwing.
Things, and they're just throwing, and they're, trying to work the outside corner a bunch or whatever they're trying to do. They're not pitching to situations. Hitters aren't hitting to situations. They're trying to work on different things. That's boring, man. Like, and you never get, okay, this is probably going to be the starting 9 for your team, right?
Right.
I mean, it's split squad. It's all these different things. Well, World Baseball Classic amps it up a little bit.
It's kind of like what you just said too. Spring training is dull. Nobody cares who wins or loses the game.
Not even a little.
During the season, there's 162 games, and I love baseball. I love it. And I have it on almost every night in the background, having dinner or something, playing video games. It's always on. It's still, you drown out 162. They're not all meaningful games. So the fact that the preseason of that's even less meaningful, come on. And World Baseball Classic, like you said, obviously they're trying to get the World Cup feel.
Sure.
And that is way more popular because you get people that don't even like the sport watching. So even if a little bit of that trickles down to baseball, I think it makes it worthwhile. And like you said, the players care a little bit more. I think it just makes it infinitely more entertaining than just the spring training.
100%.
Now, I wouldn't have it after the season in like November in like warm climates. I don't think that works because we're baseballed out.
Right.
But in March, I think that's a perfect way to get the ball players involved. And it's and don't have it every year either. It's almost like a unique thing. So I think I think we're agreeing again.
Scary, but true. But no, I'm with you. I think it's a lot of fun. I think the players get a lot out of it, honestly. I mean, people are going to be traveling all over the country. You're going to have a pool, I think, in America. You're going to have, all kinds of other things. It's interesting, and it gets people excited about baseball. And let's be honest, that's baseball's biggest problem right now is getting people excited about baseball. So I'm happy that they're doing it. I'm excited about it. I'm going to be rooting for Team USA, and I hope those games are at least not on in the middle of the night. I would like to see those at a regular, normal time. But, hey, you do what you got to do, right? I totally get it. But, all right, so that's the World Baseball Classic. Next topic of conversation, some fun NIL news to report. Okay, I saw this on Twitter today, and I had to ask you about it. DeColdest Crawford. Okay, DeColdest Crawford. He's a freshman wide receiver for Nebraska. He signed an NIL deal with SOS Heating and Cooling in Omaha. Okay, so scale of 1 to 10, your approval of this NIL deal for DeColdest Crawford.
I think that's a 10. How can it not be? Like, I think everybody's a winner in this situation. I would like to know how much he got paid because whatever it is has to be worth it. I don't see how it's a bad thing. What do you think?
I think it's awesome. I think this is what NIL was for.
It's fun.
Yes, this is what NIL was for. It's for the Notre Dame offensive line to go to Mission Barbecue, right, and get their NIL deal with that. It's for DeColdest Crawford to go with a heating and cooling company because his first name is DeColdest. Like, that is so perfect. It's so perfect. And again, it's not a blank check. Like, when they were recruiting DeColdest Crawford to Nebraska, they weren't like, hey, we got this blank check here for you from SOS Heating and Cooling out of Omaha. If you come, be a part of our program. It's, hey, you got a really cool first name. You're already here. Let's have some fun with this. Why don't you come be our spokesperson for a local heating and cooling place? Like, I think it's awesome. I think it's so cool and good for that kid. Watching him, and there was some pictures of him like posing in front of the van, or the heating and cooling van, and it's like, I don't know that he looked like he really wanted to be there, but you know what? So he makes a couple $1,000 out of the deal. It's money he didn't have yesterday. You know what I mean? Like, I think this is what NIL is built for. No question about it.
And I think that's like you said, a perfect example of it. I mean, you're playing off a guy's name. He's probably got made fun of his whole life. Yeah, right. And now he's a freshman in college, and he's finally making a monetary value out of it, which is wonderful. And it's fun. And who knows if he ends up being anybody or not. But I wonder if on his team he might get a little razzing from some of the guys that he makes more money than them just because of his name.
It's fantastic. Again, I think this is what the spirit of NIL is all about. And that's what I think I love the most about it. And I'm glad that he's getting some publicity for it because it's awesome and good for him just based on his name. Like, thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad, or whoever decided to call me DeColdest. For the first 18 years of my life, I hated you. Now I love you. here's some of my money. Like
that guy went by his middle name his whole life until now. And now he's like, oh, I'm okay with the coldest because I have and that place only has 2 locations in that whole state.
That's right.
And who knows how much money they gave him, but I bet he gets a deal on an air conditioner.
Hey man, come clean out my vents, or whatever. Like
his dorm will have an AC unit in it.
That's fantastic. I think Notre Dame is probably the only place that doesn't have AC in all their dorms, but it is what it is, right?
Well, it's that old school feel.
That's right. You got to earn it. Okay. You got to earn it. All right. Let's talk a little pro football, but not the pro football that you think we're going to talk about. We're going to go XFL, Bobby. So the XFL is back this time with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as the commish. Big names involved as head coaches like Bob Stoops, Wade Phillips, Rod Woodson, Hines Ward. Those guys are all going to be head coaches of this league this year. They're going to be in 8 cities across the country. So buy or sell this iteration of the XFL, and if it will work and or last more than, half a season, a full season, like what do you think about the XFL?
Well, I'm going to sell it long-term because you already have the USFL, which had a semi-successful made-for-TV product in Birmingham. And the XFL, what are they just trying to get Steelers guys to be coaches? Is that their deal? Rod Woodson, Hines Ward.
Bill Cowher was busy, I guess.
Yeah. And but I would sell it long-term. I love The Rock. He's I grew up watching wrestling, and he's my guy. But the league has already failed twice, and it wasn't that long ago that it failed. And you can blame COVID, but that year, even if you were looking at the ratings, they were crashing.
Sure.
There's no reason to cheer for a team that you don't know any of the players. And the fact that now they're the 3rd league down, I just don't see a viable option for it to last long term. I know that they have a little bit of a tie with the NFL, and they're going to test out some rules and different strategies of things. But I don't think that's enough that anybody's going to watch a non-NFL league when the NFL is not around. They need more than just the stars being coaches, I think, to make it work.
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head as far as I'm concerned with the XFL. Look, they're doing a great job of getting names, right? I mean, The Rock is your commissioner. Like, he talked about running for president, and now he's going to be the commissioner of the XFL. Okay, check mark. Good job. Yeah. That'll bring in some eyeballs, no question. You've got some named guys as far as the head coaches. Again, it's going to be the product they put on the field is going to be subpar. Otherwise, they'd be in the NFL. Okay. Right. The other problem is until the NFL decides they are going to financially support a league other than themselves, so like a minor league or whatever you want to call it, a D league for the NFL, right. Until they put their money mitts into it, they're not going to be successful. They're just not going to be. And it's a shame because I think good things came from the XFL in the past, right? The little the score bug in the corner, the camera that was on, the
Madden cam.
Yeah, like all of those things came from the XFL. Like good things can come from the XFL. But the finances are going to be so tough because you make your money based on the people that are showing up to the games. And I don't know if they're going to make enough money based on the people showing up to these games in February and March, like that, because that's when they got to play. Because they're going to try to ride the momentum of the NFL. They're going to start right up after the Super Bowl and all of that, and that makes a lot of sense. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough, and I think they're doing all the right things, and they have a little bit of a relationship with the NFL. But until they get that full-fledged, we got you financially, it's going to be really hard.
I think the only way the XFL could really emerge as something that you want to watch is almost if they become college football. Like if you're between 18 and 21 and you don't want to go to college and that's what the XFL wants to get and they can sign you, all these recruits, that would make it more watchable.
Years. Yeah, like a 3-year contract basically, yeah.
And then it's kind of like what the USFL used to be where you sign for the league and then within that you can go to the teams and they divvy you up. But without that sort of like college football field, because you said that from February to March and April, that you can't play anywhere in the north or anywhere where it's cold. So it's going to be a regional league in terms of actually going, which is what the USFL did in Birmingham. But that was a made-for-TV product.
That was weird, having cities, teams named after cities, but they were all in the same place. Like, weird.
Right. and they didn't care because it was all the Fox and NBC contract. But you need something eventually to be able to travel to. But they didn't have to pay for traveling. Everybody was in the same town, literally the same locker room. So, but the XFL they're trying to spread back out. And I think that the last time the XFL, they didn't have a lot of teams, but at least they're on social media, and even like people just seem to care a little bit more than they did the first time. So maybe there's a little hope, but I don't think you can have two leagues either. And that's kind of what's hurting the USFL and XFL. They're splitting what's already the low rent part of people.
Yeah.
In terms of talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And as much as I love college football, because I do, and I don't want things to change, but they're changing. With NIL, they're changing. And the guys that are out there just for the bag of money, they might as well have the option of going and playing in like a D-League situation. You sign a 3-year deal. You can't go to the NFL until you're 3 years removed from high school. I get it, man. That actually makes a lot of sense. Anybody that wants to do that, okay, you're going into the draft. And we'll draft you to the teams, and there's no guarantee that you're going to get in, but if you get drafted, or you could be an undrafted free agent or whatever the case may be. But I think that would add some intrigue to the XFL. I think it would. They're doing it in the NBA, right? I mean, there's leagues that these kids can sign into before going to the NBA. So why not do it in the NFL? I mean, I guess it actually does make some sense.
And if you're the first one that starts scooping that way too, you get those kids. Like if Archie Manning was signed with the XFL for, I don't know how much money would be reasonable with the NILs, more than the NIL, obviously. Yeah. So like, let's say I'm just throwing stupid numbers. I mean, right. But let's say you give him $1 million that he's going to sign with the XFL, and he's a name, obviously, with the Manning name and everything else.
Sure.
But like, are you going to watch that guy in his first game? Absolutely, you are.
Absolutely.
And then you might, and like instead of recruiting to Texas, he's going to be pulling players to that league in general.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a showcase for the NFL, and you have 3 years to prove yourself, and then you're out. I think that would make it a viable option of something that might make it more appealing to watch. At least.
Sure. You might want to give Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson a call. I think you're onto something. I see vice president of the XFL in your future.
Or just overall, we can run for office.
And then you can be on the ticket with The Rock.
Yeah, I don't even care if we lose at that point.
The Johnson Hensley ticket. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. I like where your head is, kid. I like it. I want to be your Secretary of Education. That's all.
You're in. You're hired.
There you go.
Promoted. Yeah.
Done. Yeah. I love it. All right. Last question here for rapid fire. Let's go to the actual NFL, actual professional. Well, not actual. The more established professional football. It's been widely reported that Kyler Murray's new $230 million contract includes a 4-hour independent film study clause. So fill in the blank for me. The fact that the Cardinals feel like they need to put that in his contract is blank.
So you're saying that the team is going to put a clause in there that requires him to go to practice and do his homework.
To do his homework outside of practice, he has to have 4 hours on his iPad studying film.
I mean, I'm going to say, if I'm the Cardinals, I got to say bye it's good because, you're protecting your own investment. Sure. And he's already seemed kind of like a flight risk, and like he has one toe in the Major League Baseball world, which he was. I think all of that was just put up to make him get this contract. I don't know if he actually wanted to play. Maybe he did, but you wouldn't make as much money. And he knew he had leverage at that point.
Sure.
Nobody wants to go to Oakland right now to play baseball. So
that's fair. So
I get it all, but I think it protects your investment, and it gives you an out if there's something that happens down the road. So I guess it makes sense. It's a very weird caveat to put in your contract, and I've never heard of it before.
It is a very weird caveat, and I think that's why it's getting so much play, throughout social media, etc., because you wouldn't think you would have to put that in there, right? You would think that if you're signing a contract worth that, I'm pretty sure it's the highest contract out there. I could be wrong, but it's pretty high. It's definitely top 5, top 3. If you're signing that contract, you would think that comes with the territory. Like, you're going to have to do some film study. You're going to have to, work a little harder, things like that. I think it's ridiculous how much money he's going to make because, let's be honest, he hasn't really done anything to earn that money. but that's the free market economy that we live in with the NFL. If you want to lock up your quarterback, you got to be higher than the last guy that signed, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I think it's ridiculous, frankly. And if they felt like they had to do it, there's a reason they felt like they had to do it. So that tells me he hasn't been doing it.
Right.
That's what that tells me, is that he hasn't been doing it. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I read it. And if you're not studying film and you're a franchise quarterback, that's a massive red flag for me. So I think it's a bit of a red flag territory.
I think what I agree with you on the red flag territory. And who else do the Cardinals have in the fall? They drafted Josh Rosen just before him. So I think they're trying so hard to find their franchise quarterbacks. You have to have one. And I don't know what their window is, but they had a couple successful seasons. But at the end of them, both of them, Kyler Murray was kind of getting figured out, and he couldn't make it through the year. And you almost wonder if that goes back to his lack of preparation for each game. Right. And it's easy to be more athletic on high school. For him, it was easy to be more athletic in college. In the NFL, he's not more athletic than everybody. You have to outthink them as well. And that's what makes some of these guys that, were like Mahomes. I don't know what his work ethic is towards film study, but he got better. He's elevated himself.
Sure.
And I think that's what Kyler Murray's got to do to stay relevant. And they're trying to lock him into that, maybe in a roundabout way. Sure. So it's a red flag, but maybe it's their way of, protecting their investment or investing in their own investment. But maybe that way he will finally find a way to start outsmarting defenses and find it clicking a little bit more easy, because they aren't built for a long run. They kind of got to go now with DeAndre Hopkins and what they have available. I think that it just why and why make that so public? Right. It's a bad look all the way around. It makes him look like he doesn't prepare. Makes you look like you're signing a guy that you don't even believe in.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's a PR nightmare, is what it is. And
this whole thing has been
right. Nobody comes out looking good on this. Nobody. And Kyler Murray, I think, met the media today, and he's like, he's all mad, about people reading too much into it and all these different things. And I get it. I see where he's coming from. I'd be upset about it too, frankly. But you also signed the contract. So did you not read your contract? No, he probably didn't, but his agent should have. And so, you can be upset about it, and I get it, but then ask him to take it out.
Do you think that at some point he could have been the second highest paid quarterback, but then if they wanted to leave that in the contract, what was a negotiation with that clause? There had to have been a little bit, because everybody both sides had to have known what a nightmare it would be.
Absolutely. If it got out, and it clearly got out. So there you go. But we'll see what happens with Arizona. They spent a lot of money on their quarterback. I don't see it ending well, but that's just me personally. So
in a very tough division.
Yeah. No, and it's not getting any easier. So yeah, absolutely. So anyway, all right. Well, that is going to do it for tonight's edition of IB Nation Sports Talk. Thank you very much, Bobby, for agreeing to hang out with me for a little over an hour. I really appreciate it.
No, it's an honor. Yes. Honor and a pleasure.
There you go. All right. See, you treat me so much better than Sean, and I appreciate that too. I'm going to make sure he knows it. But everybody out there, make sure that you give us a like, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you tell your friends and family about us. If you're listening on the podcast, give us that 5-star review. Really appreciate that. Some great
especially while Sean's gone.
Yeah, absolutely. Some great action in the chat tonight, and it was very distracting in a good way, because you guys had a really good conversation going that I wanted to jump into, but it wasn't what we were talking about, so I didn't jump into it. But some good stuff over there. Thanks to everybody for watching and paying attention to what we were talking about. Really appreciate it, you guys. And we'll be back tomorrow, 1 o'clock, because it's the best day of the week. It's the mailbag, Friday free-for-all mailbag, where you, the viewer, will drive the show for as long as we can possibly go. Probably a 2-3 hour marathon like we usually do. So make sure you tune in tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And then Sean will be back in this seat on Monday. I'll be in that seat over there on Monday, August 1st, to kick things off for a new month, the month that starts fall camp. Fall camp is right around the corner, people. 8 days away, August 5th. So prepare yourself mentally. We are fall camp week next week. So for Bobby, I'm Vince. Thanks for joining us on the IB Nation Sports Talk.